I happen to really like the Romans four-parter of classic Doctor Who. I know I've said before, maybe I assume I've said on this retrospective, the historicals aren't my favourite. I sometimes think it's a weird sort of, I don't know, the compulsion for this idea that, for example, when classic Doctor Who first came about, you notice old forum posts from around 2004-5 saying things like, "Oh, I hope the historicals come back." And it's like, why? Like, what's so interesting about them? It's like this show can do anything, and you want just like a basic period piece. Like any show could do that. Theoretically, you could just have an anthology show, which is just a historical scenario, his period each time. But I really like the Romans. The humor, something about. There were a couple of those British sitcoms about, like Vox Populi or whatever they were called, 1, 2, 3 something. Like there were something. The British in Life of Brian, the British do Roman humor, which is like a Roman Empire set fast really well, and the Romans handily fits into a tradition of great English period piece spoofs. It's grand. I like Roman fiction in general. I love the Pepler boom of the Italian film industry in the late 50s into early mid-60s. I think it's just fabulous. Love Roman Empire image. I just think it's the coolest, silliest kind of camp thing. And at the same time, there is a kind of great aesthetic seriousness to it. It requires the most from a film production if you're going to really realise it. And a kind of garage historical recreation for the Pepler bracket, at least. But The Romans is extraordinarily entertaining. I think it's a great show from William Hartnell and the gang, just doing a less serious, more, I guess, more comedically inclined Doctor Who scenario. With still some danger and tension, and the tone ultimately doesn't stray too far, if at all, from the tone of the program up to this point. I think, yes, I don't know, the historicals seem to be overrated simply because I think people watching the show, decided, I'm going to go back and watch classic Doctor Who, and they end up having better things to do, more parties to attend or whatever, and so they don't end up watching, Second Doctor. I mean, Second Doctor, so much of it's missing, so they'll probably give up there, and then they've seen enough of Pertwee and Baker in the 80s era, so they're like, I don't need to rewatch all of that. And so, they're rewatching the Hartnell era, and initially they're looking at it, trying to analyze it objectively or whatever, seeing, what they should praise it for. And they're like, oh, we should give more attention to these serials because they follow the rules of what makes something good. And it's like, do they? Do they actually have an affect? Or are they just kind of there? And there's this weird sort of, you don't know what's good and what's not good. And so you just decide that the historicals, well, those historicals were good. They're okay. You don't know if Marco Polo is that good. It's not available. The Aztecs is overrated, as we all know. We're not going to go into that again. Barbara was going on an ugly power trip there, out of character. And then the Reign of Terror is very good, though people don't seem to like that one as much for whatever reason. The Romans, however, this is good stuff. This is probably my favourite period piece so far, along with the Reign of Terror. And now let's read out something about the context about this particular episode, because why not? The concept of a Doctor Who serial set in ancient Rome originated during the planning of the show's second season in early 1964. In April, it was allocated 4 episodes under the description Roman. The production team decided that it would use the Romans in its preceding episode, The Rescue, to introduce new companion Vicky following the departure of Carol Ann Ford as Susan Foreman. The Rescue was written by outgoing script editor David Whittaker as a 2-part introductory story, and The Romans was written by new script editor Dennis Spooner as a further establishing adventure. Whittaker officially commissioned Doctor Who and The Romans on the 31st of August 1964. Spooner was due to deliver the first 2 scripts by September and the last 2 by October. Richard Martin was originally assigned to direct The Romans, but was replaced by Christopher Barry, I guess fortunately, in October 1964, following the decision to use the same production team as The Rescue, forming a single 6-episode production block. Barry soon contacted Antonio Maria Collini of the Museum of Roman Civilization to discover more information regarding Nero's ruling of Italy. Great call that was. The Romans was envisioned as the first Doctor Who serial of a humorous tone, which producer Verity Lambert had been interested in attempting. Verity, don't just interfere with something that's not yours. Come on. According to William Russell, Lambert recognised Spooner's sense of humour and asked him to incorporate it into the script. The original concept was to parody the 1951 film Quo Vadis, where the team soon discovered that another parody of the film, Carry On Cleo, in 1964, was also in production. The story presented real historical characters like Nero and events like the Great Fire of Rome in a fictitious manner. Spooner used the surname of Robert Guiscard for the character Flavius Guiscard, the owner of the villa used by the Doctor and his companions. Early revisions of the scripts used Vicky's original names, Tanny and Lucky? I don't know. Raymond Cusick worked as the serial's designer. It was his only historical serial and became his least favourite work. Aww. What a square. He had a budget of £450 per episode. Several of the set elements were already owned by the BBC, that's good, though a few were constructed by Bill Roberts of Shawcraft Models. Barry contracted Peter Diamond in early November 1964 to coordinate the stunt work. Diamond was also cast in the role of Delos, as it required fighting expertise. The series' incidental music was composed by Raymond Jones, who was new to the series but had worked with Barry on Anne Veronica in 1964. The score, pre-recorded at Broadcasting House on the 25th of November 1964, used harp, French horn, flute, and clarinet. I think this shall do for now. Have a wonderful day, night, wherever you are, if you're so inclined, to view episode 2 of the Romance on our classic Doctor Who retrospective here on AOD.